President-elect Joe Biden has been, in fact, given the green light to formally begin his transition to the White House after a key official designated him the apparent winner of the election. The apparent winner. General Services Administrator.
I guess that's the phrasing.
Yeah, that is the phrasing. Although in the letter that General Services Administrator Emily Murphy sent to the Biden team, she called him Mr. Biden as opposed to President-elect Biden. This letter of ascertainment. And that is the letter that said that they can move forward and receive access to key federal funds and other resources. Now, this is the first step that the Trump administration has taken to acknowledge the president's defeat. The GSA's decision came on the same day Michigan certified the president-elect's victory in the state. Paula Reid reports from the White House.
After weeks of delay, GSA Administrator Emily Murphy officially authorized the initial steps to transfer control of the federal government. Among the resources now available to the Biden team will be $6.3 million in congressionally appropriated funds, along with 175,000 square feet of federal office space, including secure facilities for sensitive intelligence briefings. In a letter to President-elect Biden, Murphy wrote she was never directly or indirectly pressured by the White House to delay the process. In response to the news, Mr. Biden's transition team wrote it will soon gain complete understanding of the Trump administration's efforts to hollow out government agencies. This also means the Biden team will be able to communicate with Trump officials about the COVID vaccine plan, which Mr. Biden has called crucial.
More people may die if we don't coordinate.
While the president initially said he recommended the transition process begin, he also said his case against the election results strongly continues, and I believe we will prevail. He later tweeted that he would never concede. But the Trump campaign has had dozens of legal losses, including one on Monday when the Pennsylvania Supreme Court rejected its efforts to block the state from counting certain absentee ballots. That decision clears the way for votes to be certified in several counties.
Chair Bradshaw. Yes.
Also on Monday, Michigan's Board of Canvassers voted to certify the state's election results, paving Mr. Biden's way to the state's 16 electoral votes and almost certainly blocking any pathway for President Trump to overturn the election outcome. One of the board's 2 Republicans joined its Democratic members to certify the results.
In this case, the law is absolutely clear. We have a clear legal duty to certify the results of the election as shown by the returns that were given to us.
All right, Paula Reid joins us now to talk about this. So, Paula, help me understand one thing here. In the letter Emily Miller sent, she says, quote, she was never directly or indirectly pressured by any executive branch official, including those who work at the White House. The president, just right after that letter was sent to the president-elect, tweeted, she is being allowed to work with the Dems. Quote, she is being allowed to work with the Dems. I don't understand. I guess we'll never really know, but it does seem as if the president is the one who has freed Emily Murphy to begin this transition process, and that perhaps it's not just the fact that she was following the rule of law. I don't understand.
Mixed messages, Vlad. Certainly not the first time we've been here on the White House North Lawn trying to parse inconsistent statements from this administration, but it does appear that she is now moving forward, and she is trying to argue, insist that she was never pressured, that this was her decision, that she was trying to do what she believed was the right thing. But of course, that was also keeping in line with the president's belief that this was not a settled matter, who was indeed the president-elect. But now that this letter has been sent, this is what the Biden-Harris team has been waiting for. They will presumably now get the services and the resources that they need to move forward with this transition.
Yeah, she was sort of suggesting that because of all these legal challenges, the final count was somehow up in the air in some way, so she was waiting. The president then later on tweeted that, you know, he's definitely not conceding, make sure that no one gets that sort of confused. So does that mean that there will be more legal challenges? Are there still legal challenges ongoing? Should we expect more to be filed?
Sure, Anne Marie, let's divide them into 3 categories. You have legal options that you can exercise for a recount. You have legal challenges, and then you have actual viable legal chances to get to 270 electoral votes. There are none left in the third category. There was a time when we were looking very closely at Pennsylvania. I spoke with the president's legal team frequently, and they thought potentially if Joe Biden's margin, if he won Pennsylvania, if it was small enough, they could try to take the case to the Supreme Court, get them to throw away those ballots that came in the last few days after the election. That would give them a chance of flipping that state. They had some scenarios, some hypotheticals. That's gone. Biden's margin in Pennsylvania was large enough that at this point there does not appear to be any viable legal way for the president to overturn the outcome. Doesn't mean they're not going to stop filing lawsuits. They've made that clear. They continue to file lawsuits. We see another one working its way through the courts in Pennsylvania. The Supreme Court in that state threw that out just yesterday. There were other cases across the country, but judges continue to dismiss these allegations, saying, look, you're claiming there's widespread voter fraud, but you're not presenting any evidence. These cases aren't even making it past the first step. And many people, even in the Republican Party, have criticized the president's legal team for their performance here. Now, lastly, there are some legal options. For example, if you're within the threshold for a recount, for example, in Georgia, they've asked for another recount. Why not? If you have a client and they're entitled to that, sure, go ahead. That is something that I think they will continue to pursue. No one's really going to criticize them for at least trying that. But all this other legal activity, look, there's not a pathway to change what happened at this point. This is just the artly postures of litigation. He is not going to prevail, but it does appear to be helping with fundraising, which is why it continues.
So that was one last question on President Trump before we start talking about President-elect Biden and his plans for the future, Paula. What are you hearing is the relationship that the president has with his legal team? We note, of course, as you reported earlier this week, that Sidney Powell is no longer part of the team. She was part of that wacky press conference that they held at the landscaping place a couple of weeks ago, and also that surreal moment where Rudy Giuliani spoke with his hair dye or whatever that was dripping down his face. So now, but you still have folks like Jenna Ellis, who's one of his lawyers, appearing on MSNBC and saying these are the words out of her mouth, that the president won in a landslide, which is simply not true. So I'm just curious what his relationship with those lawyers are. Some people have even posited, Paula, and you'll know this better than anybody, that once Rudy looked really, really bad doing whatever it was that he was doing at the request of the president of the United States, you know, President Trump just cares about you looking good, right? Sean Spicer got up there in front of you all for months and misinformed the public. He was okay with that until he started to criticize spicy suits, and then it was out the door. So I'm just curious if he has this relationship with his lawyers that is still a viable one.
The president has a lot of lawyers, a lot of different lawyers. Some of them help him with litigation related to his business. Some of them have helped him through impeachment, also the Mueller investigation. Some of them are of a very high caliber. His White House counsel, Pat Cipollone, very good lawyer. Jay Sekulow, his personal attorney, another very good lawyer. Former U.S. Attorney, former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani at one time was considered a very good lawyer, but his work with President Trump has drawn considerable scrutiny. He is often ostracized by those other more established, more competent attorneys because of the way he pursues his defense of his client. He would often go on cable news. He would promote conspiracy theories, make allegations that were just not supported in fact. So this is not the first time Rudy Giuliani's defense of the president has come under scrutiny. There was the added aesthetic elements of that black substance rolling down his face at the Supreme Court, and you couple that with the fact that they're losing everywhere. Judges are tossing these lawsuits in states across the country. That's not what the president wants. Not only aesthetically is it just not a good presentation, not a good look. He is what President Trump would refer to as a loser in court right now. And the president has often said he does not like to lose. So there is certainly tension between the president and his legal team right now. But he's held on to Rudy Giuliani through a lot of criticism, through a lot of questions, through a sort of questionable performance. But while the president was successful in not being removed from office, even though he was impeached, while he was not directly indicted through the Mueller investigation, or that did not move to Congress or move any further, he is not being successful here. They're not able to help him win and get what he wants here, which is also adding to that tension, the president becoming less tolerant of the overall situation.
You know, Paula, we spoke to former advisor to the president, John Bolton, and he had said, look, it's not going to be Democrats that are going to push the president along. We're going to need to hear from Republicans. And it seems like we are hearing at least a little more now from Republicans publicly. I know there might have been conversations happening behind the scenes, but many of them were not willing to publicly tell the president that he needs to accept this transition. But more people are being critical now. What are you hearing that Republicans are saying to the president behind the scenes and in front of the cameras?
Well, more and more we're seeing Republicans break from the president, apply pressure on the administration to move forward with the transition. Most recently, we saw Republican Senator Lamar Alexander. He came out, he encouraged the president to take a pride in his many accomplishments and to put the country first. And you're seeing that more and more, but a large part of the reason you haven't seen that over the past several weeks is that they know the president will likely continue to be a political force. He performed much better than expected in the presidential election. He has formed his own political action committee. He is expected to be someone with a very large bully pulpit over the next few years, and many Republicans, they are afraid to cross him.
All right, Paula Reid, thank you so much.